Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Foran.
Yeah, what's up everybody? This is Herschel Foran from High School Top 200 and this is the Monday morning meeting. We're back again for another episode. For those that are listening, welcome back. Thanks for being here and for supporting me and all that kind of stuff too. I know that the season's finished, but there is still more rugby to be played. There's still a lot of things that I think should be talked about. Because there's region games coming up, rep games coming up, so and the New Zealand secondary school players are going to be selected, all that kind of stuff, and so I'll stay all the way through to around Condor's time. Maybe till about then, and then see how long I go for after that. Because I'm not too sure what I'm going to be doing, but I'll try and take you guys as far as I can, and just keep first 15 rugby or schoolboy rugby talked about for as long as I can until I decide what's going on and what's going to happen. But this is not going to be I always say it's not going to be too long, but I end up talking for ages. But this is the one that's sort of just based around the rep teams. I was going to do just a full one of all the rep teams, the Blues, Chiefs, Hurricanes, Crusaders, and Highlanders, but because the Highlanders are always so slow to doing things and so slow to naming teams, or even if they name the team or not, because sometimes they name a team and they don't say anything to anybody and they don't put it out that they've named a team. So we'll wait one more week for the Highlanders, and if their team doesn't come out this week, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about them and who I think should be in there, or who I think will be selected if they don't have a team already put in. But I was going to talk about the players that missed out, players that I thought should have made it in, what I think the overall teams look like, or what I think how they have structured them, and kind of like where I think that the selectors are going with the selections that they've made and the types of players that they've picked. Because just starting off and already looking at some of these other teams, and I know that a lot of you guys saw the highlights that I put up of the three Matamata boys, Matamata College boys, and I got a pretty heavy response in terms of guys that did play, and I was right too. There was guys that did play against their team, the Matamata College team, had boys asking why I thought they didn't make it and why I thought they weren't selected, because they all pretty much felt that the main three that I highlighted should have been in that under 18 Chiefs team. And to me, this just furthermore reiterates and echoes the fact that I've been saying for a long time why recruiting and is such an attractive thing to guys that come from small high schools. And as much as I would want kids to stay at the schools that they're at, this is the perfect example of why kids don't stay and why kids feel like they need to go to a bigger school. Because, for example, Adrian Collins, who's the number 8 for St. John's College here in Hamilton, he's from Matamata, and he went over to St. John's a long time ago, to play at St. John's and to be at a sort of a better school, and he made the under 18s for the Chiefs. And imagine what he would have been like in that Matamata team, this year with those three other boys that I put in there. But you also got guys like Cohen in there as well, who are also really good players. And then you got Regan Arson, who was the second five in those highlights that I was showing. And he used to be at Hamilton Boys under 15s, and then he moved back home just to be at home. Travel pretty much got too much for him, and going from Matamata back to Hamilton Boys, things like that. And so he decided to stay home at Matamata. But he used to be at Hamilton Boys. Now imagine what he would have been like in this Hamilton Boys team and their backline that they already had, and how dangerous that would have been. And I guarantee he wouldn't have missed out on the spot on that under 18s team. I'm sure Damien and Darcy as well. Also, guys, those two, the number 8 and also the front rower, if they were at bigger schools, even if they were at a school like St. Peter's Cambridge, a team that they beat, they would have got selected out of that school just for the fact that they play in the CNI competition. They would have been noticed and they would have been seen. Now, for me, I'm all in for recruiting because I'm in for the player going to where they feel like they want to go, and I'm for the player and the parents taking up the scholarship that they've been offered if they feel like that's what they want to do. And when you have sort of cases like this, where 3 solid players like that get overlooked through whatever reason, and it happened in my own Chiefs region when it really shouldn't, because I'm right here talking about them almost every single week, highlighting Matamata College every single week, and Matamata got word back that they weren't even looked at, and they weren't even seen, and they didn't even have people come and see their team. They weren't responding to, it's like the Chiefs selectors didn't even know about those players. They didn't even know who they were, which is hard to believe that they didn't even know that the Waikato Division 1 champions and the co-ed champions for the Chiefs region, who is Matamata, winning those 2 competitions, and those 3 players who are their main players they didn't know about them. It's strange. But at the same time, it does reiterate what I've been saying. Is it's like, guys, don't go out there and do the job. How did you miss these 3? And the worst thing is that, like, wherever these guys go to next year, whether they stay in Waikato or leave, I have a feeling that they're going to get picked up straight away from the under-19 teams within the areas that they go to. Which means that we're not doing something here in Waikato. We're not doing something here at the Chiefs to identify that talent and be able to at least know who they are. Like, if I can do it for guys all over the country and at least be able to have a conversation about most players around the country from most schools, if I know who they are, I don't understand why these guys just in their own area don't know who they are. Like, if I did this top 200 just for Waikato schools alone, I could probably name almost everybody on a roster. Because everyone that is on my top 200 list, I know who they are and I know what they look like, and I can have a conversation about them with people from their school and how they play. That's 200 names. I could also do that with the year 12s and with the year 11s. That's a year 12 100 list, and that's a year 11 top 60 list. So that's 360 players that I can talk personally on how they play the game. That's 360 just off the top of my head. And these guys couldn't identify 3 players from the team that won the Waikato Division 1 competition in Waikato, that's played here in Waikato and Hamilton, and they also won the Chiefs Co-Ed Cup as well for this region. Which means that if they were going down to the top 4 and they had the Co-Ed Nationals this year, they would have been the team representing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs wouldn't have known about anything. They wouldn't have known anything about this team, which is strange. Like I turned up to Rugby by the Beach in Papamoa, which was a solid competition between like some really good teams that were closely matched up, and they had a really good back and forth push in every single game. But I didn't notice anyone from Waikato there and from the Chiefs, and they had some solid players there that are on that borderline of Chiefs players that you could sort of look at and watch and go, I think we can take a chance on these like 6 players and bring them into camp and just see what they look like, because I know that they look good here, and that's fine, and it may look good here on this level, but I feel like if I put them with other players that are better ones from Rotorua boys or Tauranga boys or New Plymouth boys or Hamilton or St. Paul's Collegiate, and I put them together with these other better players, I think we'll get like someone different. And I think that they'll shine a bit more if they had other guys at their quality level right there with them. And that's kind of what you should be doing when it comes to rep teams, is that, yeah, you're going to get different levels of players from like smaller schools, but you can't fault them for the fact that they're at a smaller school, or else you're going to be sort of saying, sort of contradicting your guys' selves and being a bit hypocritical by saying, hey, don't move schools, this is not good for the game, but at the same time, we're not going to see you, maybe you should have went to this bigger school. Because that's what you're saying in the same sentence. It's just like, no, you don't need to leave school because we got our spotters out there and blah, 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 whatever. But then you don't recognize that the team that won the Waikato Division 1 competition, as well as the Co-Ed Cup competition, beating 2 CNI teams actually in Whanganui Collegiate at the beginning of this year, and also St. Peter's, a school in Cambridge, you're saying you don't know about them. Now that's pretty disheartening, to be honest, because as much as you preach being loyal to your school, staying where you are, if you're good, we're going to see you, saying all those kind of lines, and you're telling kids and you're telling parents you don't need to leave your school, but then this happens. Like, what are you gonna tell them after this? Like, I think the Chiefs region, and I hate saying this about my own region because I love my Chiefs teams. I love the players in my area. But at the same time, it's just like, how did you guys not see this? And now, and I think these guys are lucky that there's not more light shone on first 15 rugby, and that the turnover of players is so big that everyone's just going to forget about it. That this happened this year to those 3 players that clearly should be in there. Clearly should be in there. And so now when these small schools, best players, when they start to get offers, and if they're listening to this and the parents are listening to this right now, they're going to go, well, what if my son gets in that situation? Where we begin to listen to the fact that we go, oh no, if my son is this good, he's going to get seen. and he has a big, massive year, and then they go, well, at the end of the year, management tells your son, is, oh, no, they just didn't know who he was. But even your management knows that he's at that level. And here's the thing, to be honest, right? I know how team managers talk about their players. And every player and every team management will back their players 100%. But at the same time, they do know which players belong in those higher brackets of talent and those that don't. And a lot of them won't kid themselves, because at the same time, the rugby management for your school does not want to put players that are out of place into those positions of where they chuck their players to the lions. Like I always say, is it's like everyone's Mufasa at their school until they get into rep teams, and then you're gonna find out who the pussycats are. Everyone's Mufasa at their school. Once you get to Rep Rugby and get into these region teams, you're gonna find out who all the pussycats are. And team managers and managements are not going to select guys that they know cannot be there, because it really is going to be out of place for those players. It really is going to be embarrassing for those players. They are really going to feel how out of place that they are. And I've said this before, is that I can go to rep trainings and I can go to rep teams and go, oh, that fella's from a small school, he's from a small school, he's from a small school. Based on the way that they train up, based on the way that they warm up, based on the way that they train, game training and stuff like that, is that they're always the guys that are a step behind. They're always the guys that are huffing and puffing at the end of every training run, because they're just not used to that pace. They just don't train at that pace. They probably train a lot harder than their games would be. And that's not their fault or anything like that. It's just the way that it is. But then you've got all those other special kind of guys who come from small colleges and come from high schools that don't play in good competitions, and they pretty much do everything themselves. And then when they get to rep training, then they're like, oh shoot, he knows this is his level. And there are guys that have done that kind of stuff. Is where they're like, oh yeah, he's all right. Even though he's from a small school, he's all right. He's good enough to be there. But then when you have something like this happen, rugby managers, I think, and you could probably look at the Chiefs region again next year and go, wow, if all those selectors are still there, are they going to see our boys? That's the worry, is that are they going to see our boys? And the thing is like, this is what sucks about being my last year, and this happening in my last year. Because next year, I would be telling all the schools, weekly do a highlight clip of your best player or the players that you want to promote, and send me the highlight clips from every single game, so I can put them together and then I can showcase them so that they do get seen on a platform that's bigger than the selection platform that these guys are on. Which is so weird to do from my point of view, that I don't even work for these guys. But I'm out here trying to promote the players that they should be seeing, which means that they don't have to go out on Saturday mornings into the cold, wake up early in the morning to travel 3 hours to a place to go and see these players. They I'll just wait for Herschel to do it. Which is pretty much what I've been doing for the last 9 years. Is that I've made scouting and recruiting so easy that most of these guys do accept my work, and a lot of them do support me and do have my back in this, but they can't publicly say it because their employers, they don't like me. And they don't want to support what I'm doing. But they do use my work. And there's some kind of comfort in it. Like, I know it sucks, but there is some kind of comfort that I go, oh, cool. I get to email with these guys and message these guys and chat with these guys on messages and stuff like that, and go and them ask me, and we have a conversation back and forth about these players. And I sort of reassure them. I was like, bro, this is not me going to, put out the receipts on you guys using my information. It's not about that at all. You guys can all sort of take comfort in that and go and know that I'm not going to out you guys, because they've got a career too that they want to try and get through. But at the same time, it's just like, man, when the push comes on, it's like, you at least speak up for me. That's all I hope, is that they speak up for me. And this is how I know, and this is where I kind of and I've talked about this before, is that when Rep Rugby comes around, the way that it works is that your coaches choose the players that they feel can play at this level. Then those names are passed on to the union. Then the union brings them in for trainings, and then they pick out of those guys that they selected. Now, if you have talent spotters, and if you have guys out there that are doing the job, why is it in every union that this goes on? That coaches get to choose the names that go on to be in the selection for Rep Rugby. If you have your talent spotters out there, why would you need the coach's selection for? You just ask your spotters. That's what they're there for, right? Now, this is why I know that the way that they're doing it is that they're just trying to cut costs and save money, and then they just take whoever's given to them and going, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll just use these players. That's a lot of names, the coaches should know. It's just like, well, no, because the coaches can be biased too. The coaches could not just like kids. And there's a lot of college, like a lot of teams out there that just don't like kids. They know that they're good players, but they're like, ugh. It's like, these coaches are just human, just like everybody else. They have their own little, things against some of these boys. They're just like, no, I'm not going to promote you. You want to be a dick at school. You don't want to do your work. You don't want to train. You blah, blah, blah. You may be good, but they're just like, no, you don't deserve to be there. When, talent-wise, they do. But my thing is, like, if you guys have talent spotters out there, why do you guys need the coaches to put forward names that they think should be in there? Because if I had talent spotters myself, I wouldn't need those guys. I wouldn't need the coaches. I mean, I'll just do it how I'm doing now. Send me your game. Let me make the decision. All I would want to do is maybe call you about some character references. That's about it. But talent-wise, it'll be like, no, just send me your tape. Put me on your huddle. I'll watch you guys on Sky, but I'll make that decision for myself. But I would want to see a lot of tape of it so I can make that decision. I mean, that's what talent spotters are there for. Get out there and go to the games. That's what we hired you to do. Do it. And so, like, all these guys, all you fellas now that are at small schools, I personally don't think you should leave, because, and here's the other thing about, getting off this Rep Rugby stuff, but there is an understanding of why you leave. But here's the other thing. And when you're accepting scholarships or moving to a bigger school, some of you guys should not be leaving your small school to go to a big school thinking that you're going to be the best player at this boys rugby school. And like, it's easy, like, to go into to go to a school like Hamilton Boys or to New Plymouth or to Rotorua or to Wellington College or Nelson College, leave your small school and be like, yeah, I'm the best player here, I'm going to go to that school and be the best player there. Like, oh, I don't know. Because like, for the most part, you're going to leave your school where you're eventually going to play in the first 15 to go to this bigger school in hopes that you'll be playing in the first 15, but really, you're just going to be a good second 15 player or a good third 15 player and not actually make the first 15 at the school that you went to become a better player. And I know that your hopes and dreams are just being like, yeah, because I'm the best here as an under 15, I'm going to go to that school and in 2 years I'm going to make it. But then in 2 years you still end up in the third 15 or fourth 15 or just drop out altogether. And that's not the school's fault. That's pretty much your fault with your parents. Sometimes there's just... You will get more looked at if you were a first 15 in a smaller school than being looked at as a second 15 into reps. Because like, here's the dynamic part of it, is that like, the dynamics of it is different. The optics are different when you look at it. Because you're going to say, for example, oh, he's in the Hamilton Boys second 15. So we can't really select them for Chiefs under 18s or for Waikato under 18s. I was like, no, he's killing it for Melville first 15. Or he's killing it for Fraser first 15. He may be the only good player in there, but he is really, really good. He's still in a first 15, is what they're going to look at. Because I'm not going to select the second 15 to make the Chiefs under 18s if you're in the second 15. But if you're in a first 15 from a stink school or a smaller school, they would rather choose the first 15 player at a smaller school and go, let's see what he can do, rather than a second 15 at a big school. So if you're at a smaller school and you're really, and you are getting seen in the under 16 rep programs and under 14 rep programs, if you're not one of the best players in that rep team, I wouldn't go over to the bigger school. Just for the pure fact of playing rugby and trying to make that first 15, because you might just end up in that second 15 or third 15. And that's a real possibility. And that's what happens a lot. Now, in my eyes, I'd rather be in the first 15 at my school than in the second 15 at another school. Like I would rather be a first 15 capped player than a second 15 capped player. At whatever school, I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even care if you were at Hamilton Boys or Rotorua Boys or Christchurch Boys or whatever. I'd be like, nah, I played first 15. We got smoked a lot, but I still played first 15. I'm not going to go to a big school and go, yeah, I was second 15 for ages. It's like, no, why'd you leave your school for? Now, I understand the guys that are bigger, that are top players from smaller schools, but at the same time, it's just like, not all of you guys should be moving over, because then you're just filling in the lower teams in hopes that you're going to get to a first 15, but you just don't. Now again, that's up to the players and the parents, but be more realistic about what those chances are at making it. Because you might just end up watching second 15 or third 15 for the rest of his high school career. And a lot of times that if kids do drop out because of those fact that they feel like they're not getting the chances, it's like, well, that is your fault. That's not rugby's fault. That's not the school's fault. That's not whoever's fault. It's just your fault. You should have just stayed. Because not everyone is good enough to make a first 15 in their area just because you were good when you were a younger kid. Islanders are the worst at it because Islanders are mature so much earlier, and they smash through a bunch of kids and they think, oh yeah, I smash everyone. It's like, yeah, but when everyone catches up at year 13, it's just like, you're still the same kid from under 15 that was smashing kids. You haven't gotten any better. Everyone just caught up and passed you. You shouldn't move to a school. Stay at the school, work harder or something, because that's what a lot of them lean on. A lot of us lean on that stuff, and like I was the same when I was at school. I just got knocked out in the game, and I thought about it real quick, and I was like, oh shoot, I can't do this anymore. I actually got to get better at playing rugby, which I still didn't do because I was a terrible rugby player for how big I was and how athletic I was. But I should have been doing a lot more than what I was doing. You know, like I still sort of shortcut myself as well. As I was like, yeah, I just really wasn't into it, like I should have been. But because this is like Rep Rugby, and this is what I want to talk about too, because like I was at the games in Auckland, watching those Auckland Rep games, and ever since I've done this, it was kind of sad to see, to be honest. It was sad to see because North Harbour wasn't there and Northland wasn't there. And I've been to Marist, on these occasions where everyone goes in, they all play. And I liked seeing North Harbour send their red and white or red and black under 16 teams, and then the under 18s teams, red and white. Oh no, Cardinal. Cardinal and white? Yeah, it's Cardinal. But they just weren't there. I didn't see the Northland teams there. And it was sad because, like, North Harbour is a big deal when it comes to, like, reps. And, like, even though people, like, just look at Auckland and, Auckland's got enough players, it's like, but there's so much talent there in the North Harbour as well. But because North Harbour decided to cut out those under 16 teams and just have it as under 18s because of whatever, standpoint that they're taking, where it demeans kids and blah, 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 it's like, yeah, but now they don't play Rep Rugby. Those players can't celebrate the fact that they achieved these spots. They achieved them. They worked hard to get there. I'm just one of those that just thinks, like, if your kid doesn't make it, your kid just doesn't make it. You just have to have that uncomfortable conversation with them and say, hey, we just got to work harder. We've just got to work harder. Either you love this game because you want to play it and then all the other stuff comes after, but we just got to work hard if that's what you want to achieve. If we don't do it this year, we'll do it next year. If we don't do it the next year, we'll do it the year after that. But we'll just keep working harder. We still love the game. Like, you just have to have those conversations. I've had to do it with my daughter because she doesn't make her dance teams and stuff like that. It's like, hey, put in the work at home, go out there and do your best. That's all you can do. But once you start getting sick of it, don't just give up just because you're not getting your weight. If you still love if you still love what you do, just keep working hard. Make sure that you love what you do, and that's the reason why you're doing it. And then all the other stuff comes after. If you're just doing it for your own self-glory and that kind of stuff, it's like, then you're on a different path, bro. But not seeing those Cardinal teams there, the white team, the Northland teams at under 18s and under 16s, it was really sad, actually, because it's cool seeing everybody show up there at Marist, with their on all those fields there, seeing everyone warm up, waiting for their games, Auckland having the same old tired Rep uniforms that they have with the yellow, green, and blue and red. It's like, bro, how many All Blacks have worn these jerseys? And not like the team, like those actual jerseys. Like the actual ones that you're wearing now, All Blacks back in the days wore those same jerseys. Akito Ioane probably wore those same jerseys. You could probably talk to John Arfon and go, hey, did you wear that jersey too? And he'd probably go, yeah, I played East. I was wearing the same red jersey that kid probably was wearing too. I was probably the first one to wear that uniform. Terrible. But, I wish that North Harbour would change their stance on their Rep Rugby. But, they have their own program going, And I've talked to them about it too, and they feel like it's better to get a whole bunch of kids in there to have a camp than to just bring in a select 30 30 to 50 players and go, these are the ones that we're going to hold in a camp, than to have like 120 and bring them all into a camp. But not that they make a team and then they end up doing travels and stuff like that, but just that they have a big camp. I don't see why they can't have the two. But that's just the way that they've chosen to go. And now when it comes to Rep Rugby and having your first rugby trips, things like that. And that's why it's so sad that Roller Mills fell through, because they pulled out of it, then other teams started to pull out of it too. Like a competition just like Roller Mills, man. It's like all that history gone because they feel like Rep Rugby is ruining the sport. Where it's just like, I just think there's other things that kids want to do now. Like gaming. Like being TikTok famous. Kids just rather do that. Make skits and stuff and, I don't know, do reaction videos. They'd rather put the energy into that. They didn't have that when I was at school. We didn't even have cell phones when I was at school. But now that kids have the access to this big old world that we have out here, they've found different things to do. Our gaming was going down to the Chinese fish and chip shop, and playing at the dairy. Everyone had 20 cents ready to go. That was our gaming. But everyone's got it different now. Everyone's got these different aspects of stuff. I don't think kids are pulling out of it because they're not making these teams. I think they're pulling out of it because they're going, I'd rather do something different with my time. You can't just force kids to play rugby. Now that basketball's so big that North Harbour's got that problem that they've got basketball players that they'll usually probably have rugby players out of. They're just like, no, I love basketball. And again, that's not down to the kid. It's down to the fact that they don't market it the same as the NBA markets them. NBA has websites and, different Facebook pages and IG pages and, Baller's Life and that kind of stuff where they promote the game of basketball and make it look fun. We don't do anything like that in New Zealand. I'm trying to do that now with High School Top 200 and promoting rugby as a sport and, doing this kind of stuff. But they just don't see it the same way. It's so strange to me. I mean, I would take Rep Rugby as a way of promoting the sport and promoting talent and promoting, like achievements and stuff. But New Zealand just don't see it that way at all. And it's so strange. And it was hard seeing that their Auckland rep, those Auckland rep games, and just not seeing those colours there, not seeing those teams show up. And I don't know if they're gonna get Northland to come down, but they had counties playing, the under 18 counties team playing against the Auckland divisional team, which is the 1B team, sort of their rep team as well. But counties aren't usually invited to that, but I'm guessing that they had invited them because, they don't have the other teams to show up. And rep things hard too. I mean, I would have thought, right? I would have thought that with the Rugby World Cup coming up, the Women's Rugby World Cup coming up, a few weeks or so, why? Why did we not have a regional girls, a region under 18s team, girls team selected? Why didn't we have that team ready to go? Why do we not have a Chiefs under 18 girls team? Why don't we have a Blues under 18 girls team? Why don't they have the big camp just like the boys do? Especially on a year like this, where we can promote our own rugby teams. Why don't we select those teams, bring them into camp, give them the same kind of camp that the boys have, and then play them their games as curtain raisers for some of these World Cup games? You know, like I kind of wish that they had like sort of more, I guess more organized, more organized rep teams for these girls, because, it's getting too big. It really is. It's getting too big now. So many girls are playing it. So many girls are good at it. So many girls have put in so much work in terms of playing tag, playing touch since they were little kids, and they brought all these skills through. And now that they're at this age, this teenage age, they're already playing at such a high level already. And you could see that already with the way that Christchurch girls came up to nationals, Manukura came up to nationals. So the way that Manurewa and Auckland girls looked as well, and Auckland girls actually wasn't really a good team, a few years ago. It's like they've built a team, and then girls have gotten behind it, and they're actually getting better and better. Mags has always been good. Hamilton girls missed out this year. Rotorua has been good. Sacred Heart. Actually, all the Sacred Hearts girls' schools around the country have gotten better and better. But they still can't. And I don't know if this is the same thing, the same problem that they're having with boys, is that give it to one guy. Let him do the spotting for all of them. Get him to push the coaches to film games. Get them to send the games into you so you can watch them throughout the week and go, I like that girl there, I like this girl here, I like this girl here, I like this girl here. And keep a note of all the girls that you would want to bring into camp, and just have that one guy make the decision for them. It's not hard. I do this with this. I don't understand it. I can't understand how they can't just pay one person per region for the girls' side. That's all you're taking care of. 5 people to do the selection for everyone. Even if they got 5 people and then they gave it to a coach who's going to coach them and go, this is what all the girls are like. Give them a big rundown on everything and goes, what are you looking for? Okay, that's this girl, this girl, this girl, this girl. You might want to bring in this girl as well and this girl as well to see which one you like better in terms of how they play, if it matches up with what you want, blah, 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 whatever. But nobody is doing that. And I've said this before, give me the money and the funding, let me do it for the girls. I will do it on that level. But they're just not. I thought this would be the perfect situation, perfect time to promote women's rugby in New Zealand, girls rugby at first 15 level, and be able to showcase our talent in curtain raisers for these things. Why are they in curtain raisers for these games? So that our girls can see all these international girls, all these international women's players, and going, holy crap, I want to be a part of this. And now that I'm 16, 17 and 18, all looking at these women rugby players and going, shoot, I need to be there. Just to give them that extra fire in there, right? Having like the Crusaders girls and the Hurricanes girls play against each other, all sit together, all watch the game again, all watch the game, and then all have them all look at each other and sort of go, this is what we want. This is what we want to aspire to. We need to get into that black jersey. so that we can do this as well. Now, I'm just talking about what I'm seeing. I hope that they have some kind of plan for our first 15 girls out there to be a part of this occasion and this opportunity that we have here in New Zealand. And somehow I feel like we don't have something planned like that. Hopefully if they watch this, I don't know if they watch it. No. I know some of them watch it. But I hope that they hear this and then sort of just take the idea and do something quick. Do something quick. Bring me in, I'll help. I'll help watch film. I'll help watch it, whatever. I'll contact all the coaches in New Zealand that all have first 15 teams and go, hey, send me what footage you have and let me watch them. Let me watch them. I'll stop all boys rugby because all boys rugby is pretty much finished. I'm just going through rep games, and usually I watch like 19 games a week. Send me all the games that you have of your team. Send me all the games that you guys have been a part of, and let me watch all the girls. And I'll do that for New Zealand Rugby so that we can get a team out in the next 3 weeks. So we can get rep teams in the next 3 weeks. We got good bases because we got a top 4 that already played. You can take, you actually could take everyone from the quarterfinals, from all the teams that were just playing in these regions, and take all the best players there, and then fill in all the other ones that come from smaller schools that you know that are really good, that are at those smaller schools, because I know that there are players like that. There's some of these players that are still in high school have already played ITM Wharepa Palmer Cup, and those girls should be added in. We already know that kind of stuff. So why not take that base and go, okay, this is what we've got here, put all these girls in it, we've seen all these girls at other schools, and we've seen how they're playing, we'll just add them to it too. Run that camp and then put those teams, and then start putting them into those curtain raisers for these teams, because they need to be seen. We need to light this fire for our next one. Our girls rugby has been so bad. We're so happy to have such a legendary coach in Wayne Smith being able to take over the All Blacks, the Black Ferns right now, and be able to take them through and go, this is what we can do, this is how we're going to get better. But we still need this extra generation right now to get ready and to sort of light that fire into them now, so they go, oh, in 3 years I need to try and make that team. Why are they doing that now? Now, from my point of view, I haven't seen that they've selected these big teams or anything yet. I saw a camp that they had, but it wasn't leading to anything really. It's like they don't want to give the money up to let these girls travel. It's like, put them on the bus. Put all the girls on the bus, travel to Owen Delaney Park, because I love Taupo so much and they're playing there, and have them all play there. Have your Blues teams, Chiefs team, and also your Hurricanes team, your girls rep teams, meet them all at Taupo, have a three-way game. It's just like, what's wrong with that? Get these girls ready at that level so they can all play each other. Put some funding back in it so we can get this next generation going. Girls rugby is so good right now. It really is. We just don't get to see it. I would love to hire someone to come and do the boys' side what I'm doing so I can do the girls' ones. I would love to do that. So we can have boys and girls rugby, top 200, and that the girls get to see it as well and go, oh, cool, she's in my position, she's in my position, she's in my position. I got to beat that girl, I got to beat this girl. And so that parents can see, oh shoot, people are watching my kid. People are watching. People will see how much hard work my daughter goes through. That's exactly what we need, but they just don't want to do it. And it bugs me so much. It really does. It annoys me so much that these girls who are equally putting in the same amount of work that these boys are, but they're not actually helping them either. They're not giving them that opportunity. Even now that they have these rep teams being picked now for the girls, we still don't get to see them much. We don't even see their games. They can't even live stream it. Someone jump on a phone. Live stream it from a phone at least. You know, I'm sure the union can pay for that. It's like, it's not that hard, man. And I was thinking too, I was just like, you know, with rep season coming up, I saw that Hurricanes team being selected and they're going to play a Fijians team, schools team, and also a selection team. That's why I put up my Fijian team. But my thing is just like, why isn't there a Samoan and Tongan one? We've got more Samoan and Tongan players here in New Zealand. We've got more Samoan and Tongan players at a higher level than the Fijian players here, because there's only a few of them. There's only a few of them around. Like, that's why I found it hard even to make a team of 15 to fill up every spot. I was like one man short. And that's just without me knowing who has actually half Fijian, half Samoan, half Palangi, half Tongan, half Māori, whatever. And I just did it off my knowledge of who was Fijian and who wasn't. But we've got more Samoan players and more Tongan players. My thing is this, like, and I've talked about this for the last 6 years on why we haven't picked a Samoan and Tongan team to play against our New Zealand secondary school teams and our Barbarians and also our under-18 Māoris. And then this perfect opportunity where we're not actually travelling, why don't we just do that? Why can't we pick a New Zealand Samoan team and call it a selection team? I don't care, whatever. Like, what do we need to do to get these two teams going? Is it representation? Is it money? Is it funding? Is it coaching? Is it what? Like, what is it? It can't be coaching, because we've got so many good Samoan and Tongan coaches in New Zealand that are of that heritage that they would probably come in for free. They would probably come in for free and be coaches of, just to help out these players and just to help them get to that next level that they want to get to. The other thing is just like, and this is what kind of annoys me too, is just like, why wouldn't New Zealand Rugby take this opportunity to pick the selection of Samoan selection and Tongan selection and still use that as their way of scouting players, to see them at a next level, to see them with better players, to see them where they think they can be projected for next year as under-19s players, and go, okay, let's just keep an eye on him because we missed him in selection here, but he looked like he's making, you know, a lot of progress there. Maybe that's all he needed. We'll pick him up next year and see what he looks like next year. The progression of how these... It almost seems like it stops at under-18s and whoever's at under-19s has to pick it up again. There's no follow-through on that kind of stuff. But I don't understand why you picked the Fijian selection team when we've got a whole bunch of Samoans and Tongans here who all miss out on these rep teams, who are all... And the thing is that even after they're selected for New Zealand secondary schools, because there's a bunch of Samoans that get Tongans get selected for you, then there's a bunch of them where you'll get selected for New Zealand Barbarians, then the sort of half-caste Tongans and half-caste Samoans that are half Māori get selected for the under-18 Māoris, and there's still heaps of Samoans and Tongans around that you could pick another strong team of Samoans and Tongans in a select team that I think will be better than those Fijian teams. I mean, we saw the under-18 Māori team in 2019 when Fiji came the last time, and their secondary schools couldn't handle our under-18 Māori team. I went down to Rotorua and watched them. Annihilated them. But if you select a Samoan selection team here from the boys that miss out on New Zealand secondary schools and New Zealand barbarians, why don't you put them in a team to have them go against them? And still use that as New Zealand scouting. Call it the Samoan team, Tongan team, whatever. But still use it as your scouting tool. I don't understand that. How would you not take advantage of that situation that you have where you could go, yeah, they weren't good enough to make New Zealand secondary schools or barbarians, but we're still going to run them through just to see how much we can get out of that. To see how good this kid can get. To see what sort of energizes him because he missed out on New Zealand secondary schools and New Zealand barbarians, and he in his mind thinks that, no, I should be there. Oh, you wait until I play with the Samoan Selection team. I'm going to get chosen for under 20s New Zealand after this. Because a lot of boys make it. A lot of boys make it in that New Zealand under 20s team, even when they don't make New Zealand secondary schools. Even when they don't make New Zealand barbarians. Now, I don't know what they're doing with this. I don't know why they picked Fiji to be the team. The Fijian secondary schools, I understand that one. New Zealand, the Fijian select team, I don't understand that one. And my team that I chose, as good as that team is, I can pick two or three Samoan teams that will be better than that team and equal to that team. And that's the best Fijian team that you can get here in New Zealand. Now, I don't know what to understand that direction that they're going in. I don't know why they chose Fiji to be that team, but they did. And even all those boys that get selected, congrats, honestly. But they need to do something about their Samoan and Tongan teams. And I've said this before, give it to me, give me that opportunity. I'll find the funding then. I'll fund it myself. I'll find the funding myself. I'll find the coaching staffs myself. Because there's plenty of Samoans and Tongans out there that are coaches that would, and this is just even in first team rugby. I can find Samoan and Tongan coaches in first team rugby to come and coach these boys. And a lot of them will put their hand up. But there should be something different about this. That competition maybe should be bigger. Because I know New Zealand in secondary schools, New Zealand rugby does not want New Zealand secondary schools and New Zealand barbarians to play each other. They really don't. That's why the last time they did it, they mixed the two teams, and then they go, after this, we're going to pick New Zealand secondary schools and a barbarian team, because they knew that if they pick a New Zealand secondary schools team and that New Zealand secondary schools team loses to the barbarians, it's not going to look great. And it almost happened, I think, 2015 or 14, they almost lost. I think Josh Mackay was the one that kicked it over right at the end, and they played in Palmy. And I think Josh Mackay was the one that won it for them that year. And they almost lost. It was like 26-24, something like that. It was something like that. Anyway, so much for a short podcast. But we'll come back next week, and hopefully next week Highlanders will have their team out, so we can talk about it, talk about the players that made it, talk about players that didn't, what schools were represented, what schools weren't and maybe should have. Yeah, we'll have a chat about that next week. Any questions, anything that you want me to talk about, please send it through as always, and then I can address it on here. But that's me, Herschel From for High School Top 200. Later, Bob.
And squeeze! And squeeze! And squeeze! Come on!